Everybody, we're ready to start the full authority meeting. This is Friday, July 16th, 2021, and I'd like to call to order, please. I am going to ask Grant Bevo to please do a roll call.
Good morning, everyone. Beginning with Member Beatty. Oh, I see him waving. Member Brady.
Good morning.
Member Clark. I see him.
Yep.
Good morning, sorry.
Member Kuhn-Peterson.
I'm present.
Member Cridland.
Present.
There she is. I see her. Member Fior.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Member Foster.
Present.
Member Halinga.
Present.
Member Hewson.
Member Hewson has sent in her regrets. They had a close family member pass away. So our condolences to Member Hewson.
Member Ingrail.
He was on earlier, but I don't see him now.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Member K-Wall.
Present.
Member McKenzie.
Good morning.
Member Metcalf.
Good morning.
Member Rapley.
We just saw him. I think he got bumped out. He'll be back in, I'm sure.
Okay. And Member Shurton. Member Smith.
Yes.
Member Steele.
Here.
Member Woodhouse. Okay, and Member Wright.
Present.
And of course, Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Grant. So folks, just to let you know that from now on, a part of our meetings, we're also going to do a roll call for specific departments. I really wanted to have the staff meet the board members and the board members meet the staff. So we're going to do this incrementally. Each department is coming up. So I'd like to call on CAO Sharma to introduce the head of the planning department, and they can introduce all the staff members. And as Kevin asked earlier, when your name is called, could you please respond so that you could be in the speaker's window for just a minute? Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Johnson and members of the board. I'm really pleased to introduce our new director of Watershed, Leilani Yates. Leilani brings to Npca extensive 19 years of experience in watershed planning, land use planning, climate change. In addition, she also brings both upper tier, lower tier, and conservation authority experience. Really pleased to have Leilani on board, leading our watershed department. Today with her, we have one team of the watershed department, our planning, development, and regulation team. So I would now ask staff to introduce themselves. But before I do that, I'll ask Leilani to say hello to the board.
Good morning, Leilani, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Chandra, and thank you, board members. And I look forward to working with you here at the Npca and with staff. It's been week 2. Everyone's been wonderful, and I look forward to the opportunity to meeting with you all virtually and in person. So with us today, as Chandra noted, we have staff from our planning and regulations section. And I guess maybe I'll do the roll call for staff. I'll go through the list. So let's start with Dave Deluce, please.
Thank you, Leilani. Good morning, board. You guys have seen me a few times. David Deluce, the Senior Manager of Planning and Regulations. I head up the planning side, permitting side, and our enforcement side on the Conservation Authority. And I've been with the authority now for just over 7 years. Thank you.
Thanks, David. We'll go to Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. Sarah Mastriani. I'm the Manager of Planning and Development with the Npca. I work with the Watershed planners very closely to continuously get out the stream of planning and permits that you all have probably heard about. And I've been with the authority for going on 19 years almost.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next on my list is Jessica.
Jessica, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm getting used to this WebEx technology. used to the Zoom meetings. Good morning, everyone. Fellow board members and staff members. My name is Jessica Abrahams. I'm a watershed planner. I've been with the Npca since September 2019, so just under 2 years, and deal with a lot of the day-to-day planning, inquiries, planning applications, and permits. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Jessica. I have Taryn.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Johnson, members of the board. My name is Taryn Leonard. I'm another one of the watershed planners. I focus on St. Catharines, Lincoln, and Grimsby. It's nice to meet you all this morning. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Taryn. We have two Nicholases. The first one I have is Nicholas Wensing.
Good morning, everyone. Nicholas Wensing, watershed planner with the Npca. Like my fellow colleagues, I handle a lot of the day-to-day planning, and I focus on the Hamilton, Waynflete, Alderman, and West Lincoln areas. It's nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Nicholas. And we have Nicholas Godfrey.
Morning, everyone. I'm Nicholas Godfrey. I've been with the Npca for just under a year, and I look after Pelham, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Thorold, as well as permits and inquiries for Port Colborne. And it's nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. We're moving over to our compliance and enforcement team now. I'd like to introduce Jason Culp, who's our manager of compliance and enforcement.
Good morning, Chair Johnson, members of the board. I think we've actually met a few times before. I'm Jason Culp. I head up the enforcement and compliance team within the Npca. I came on board in 2019, started my career with Grand River Conservation Authority back in 1994, worked my way through some of the various municipalities in the Niagara area, and then came over to the Npca in the role that I'm in now. Nice to meet you all again.
Thank you, Jason. Amy?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Parks. I'm a regulations officer with the Conservation Authority. I've been with Npca for just about 11 years in various roles. I'm here supporting our regulations and compliance department at this point in time, and also providing support, planning, and permits as well when needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Madison?
Good morning, Chair Johnson and members of the board. Sorry, I'm Madison Hill. I'm also a regulations officer in the Compliance and Enforcement Division with Amy and Jason. I've been here for it'll be 3 years this fall. And I'm actually one of the, I think there's two of us, staff representatives from the Haldimand County area. I think Jason Culp and I are right now the only ones, so go Haldimand.
Thank you, Madison. Dan?
Hi, folks. It's Dan Drennan. I'm the watershed forester for the Conservation Authority. I'm a registered professional forester. That's my background. I've been with the CA for, 13 years now. For the first 12 years, I was under compliance doing the region's forestry bylaw. That ended as of January of this year, which I'm glad not to be doing anymore. I'm more into doing forestry matters for the Conservation Authority now, so doing stuff on our properties, doing forest management. So yeah, that's my role. And yeah, so I've been doing the watershed forester job for the past 6 months, and quite happy with it. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Now we're moving to our ecologist team. I'd like to introduce Nigel Ward, Senior Planning Ecologist.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Nigel Ward, Senior Planning Ecologist. I've been here for only 6 months, but loving it so far. It's a great challenge, a great watershed. In terms of purview, so the planning, the file review, permit development, systematic conservation planning with Jeff Ricade as well. So looking at finding that balance and sustainability within the watershed. Prior to coming here, I worked with the TRCA, Grand River Conservation Authority, Alberta government, and then also the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and consulting. So I have a pretty broad background when it comes to ecology and sustainable management. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Nigel. And Adam? Adam Aldworth. I know we have a couple Adams.
Good morning, Chair Johnson and members of the board. My name is Adam Aldworth. I'm a planning ecologist here at the Npca, so I provide technical review for planning and permit files. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Also within our section is the water resources section led by Steve Miller. My understanding is you've probably met many of the staff within that section, particularly through the water quality monitoring report and work that they've been doing. So I'd like to introduce Steve.
Here we are. Good morning, folks. Steve Miller, Senior Manager, Water Resources. Met with me a number of times before. Pleased to be with you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I believe I've hit everyone who's here today. If I missed anybody, I guess please speak up or let us know. Hopefully I haven't.
Leilani, we have Irene with us today.
Yeah, of course. Irene.
Good morning, everybody. I've been here about 9 years working with the Watershed team in all capacities with planning, application permits, processing payments. The last 18 months have been a little challenging. I've been here basically by myself, and I've been helping every department. And my days fly by, but it's been great. So I'm glad that I was able to help out and keep the ship floating, so to speak. So yeah, and Leilani, I'm looking forward to chatting with you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I'll hand things back over to Chandra.
To the chair, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. And Leilani, again, welcome to the Niagara Conservation, the Peninsula Water Conservation Authority. Sorry, I'm reading all my notes here. So if I can, and thank you to all the staff that joined us this morning. I really did want to have people see the faces to meet the names that you see on your emails and all the reports. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. So can I please remind everyone to please mute yourselves, and the staff, although I love seeing your faces, could you please turn your videos off, because it just makes it easier for me to see the board members when we're doing our voting. So we're going to start the meeting calling to order. The Niagara Peninsula Watershed is located on traditional territories of Indigenous peoples dating back countless generations. We want to show our respect for their contributions and recognize the role of treaty making in which is now Ontario. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, NPCA, grieves with the Indigenous people and communities across the country on the tragic loss of so many children to the residential school system. We acknowledge that with this difficult history comes the responsibility to honor those who were lost and to strive to better understand how we can support affected communities. The NPCA stands committed to improving our relationships with Indigenous people and working with them to ensure an equitable and meaningful future for all. So, folks, you've had the agenda sent out to you. I'm going to move and second it. So it's been moved by Member Beatty and second by Member Brady to approve the agenda as it's written. Are there any concerns or questions or any opposition? No, thank you. So we're now moving on to declarations of conflict of interest. Seeing none, thank you. And I believe, Chandra, we had put in here that you were going to introduce Leilani. I don't know, do you still want to take this opportunity?
No, we've already done that, Chair
Okay.
Johnson.
Thank you very much. All righty. So approval of the minutes for A, B, C, and sorry, approval for the minutes for A, which is the June 18th minutes, and for B, the 4B minutes. So it has been moved by Member Clark, seconded by Member Kuhn-Peterson to move those minutes. Are there any concerns or questions? Any opposition? Seeing none, thank you. We're going to the correspondence now. So correspondence A, B, C, and D are just to receive, and I'm going to put it on the board on the table. Member Cridlin, seconded by Member Fior. That was a bit of feedback. So, are there any questions or comments for A or 5A, B, C, and D for the correspondence? I think that Member McKenzie, Vice Chair McKenzie, please.
Thank you very much, Chair Johnson. I'd just like to make a short comment, if I can, about correspondence A and B from the Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario, the National Farmers Union, and I believe also a letter was distributed to the members from the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. These letters all speak strongly and in support of the role of conservation authorities across Ontario from the agricultural perspective. I find these letters to be very encouraging, considering that they're coming from the associations that represent the largest private landowners in southern Ontario and across parts of other parts of Ontario. I hope that their letters are well received by the province of Ontario and given proper study. And we look forward to continuing for the Npca to work with the agricultural community. And in their letters, these associations talked about public advisory committees, and I'm so pleased to see that on our public advisory committee, we already have 2 representatives from the agricultural community, and they're representatives of agricultural community that sit on our own board. So I think the Npca already has the right welcome mat out, and always has, with the agricultural community in Niagara. Thank you, Chair Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Chair McKenzie. Are there any other comments? Member Ingrayo.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I'm back on.
Super. Now I have to ask you to mute yourself after you got everything working. I'm sorry. So it has been moved by Member Cridlin, second by Member Fior, to receive all 4 items of correspondence, 5A, B, C, and D. Any opposition? Seeing none, thank you very much. We're on to presentations. I'm going to turn this over to our CAO, Chandra Sharma, to introduce our presentation and our presenter.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Good morning. And given the growing importance of green infrastructure in our watersheds, the information we are presenting today on GI, green infrastructure, is very timely. Our guest speaker, Jennifer Code, is the Executive Director of the Green Infrastructure Ontario Coalition. Several conservation authorities have joined this coalition. Jennifer is an experienced leader with demonstrated history of success in the environmental sector. Jennifer brings a breadth of experience in the government relations, stakeholder, partnership development, and capacity building to her role to Green Infrastructure Ontario. She also has 15 years of experience in the environmental space, working all across Canada on a range of issues, including climate change, waste management, circular economy, environmental health, and of course, green infrastructure. Welcome to Npca, Jennifer. We are looking forward to your presentation.
Good morning, Jennifer. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen, so please just bear with me for one moment. Sorry, I'm not, I don't usually use WebEx, so I'm just going to have to figure out how to flip this around so you're not seeing my presenter view. Okay. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. I really enjoy the opportunity to share the results of the work that we've been doing. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of GEO's recent work and then share the high-level results from our recent economic impact assessment, which we're very proud of. First of all, for anyone who may not be familiar with GEO, just want to share a little bit about the organization. So the Green Infrastructure Ontario Coalition is an alliance of organizations. Oh, and I'm back to presenter view here, huh?
Jennifer, don't worry about it. Just move. It's all right. Seriously.
Apologies.
No. We've been through it all. This is nothing. This is great. We can still see the slides. We're good.
You'll all just get to see my notes right along with me, which are extensive because I'm trying to keep to the time. So apologies. So we were founded in 2009 and are guided by a steering committee, which I'll speak a little bit more about in a moment. And we work to promote awareness and understanding of green infrastructure and to support policy and activities that increase implementation of green infrastructure across Ontario. And so we have a real focus on promoting the co-benefits of green infrastructure. So I also like to start off by making sure that everyone's on the same page about what I mean by green infrastructure, because there can be some real ambiguity around the term. And I know for a group like this one, there's probably more familiarity, but always do want to just do this clarification piece. So GEO's definition is on the slide in front of you. This definition is consistent with Ontario's provincial policy statement. And again, our focus really is on the co-benefits that green infrastructure provides, as well as the many services. And I also want to highlight that this definition includes both natural and human-made solutions. And so our real focus is on living green infrastructure, from natural systems through to enhanced assets and engineered assets. And you can see some examples in the infographic in front of you, which is something new that GEO's developed that I'm very excited to be able to share with you today, that also helps to differentiate and explain some of the various terms used to talk about green infrastructure. I also like to share what we do not include in our definition. So specifically things like renewable energy, EV charging, and conventional wastewater treatment, which do get included in some of the federal definitions. They're all obviously very important projects, but they're not what we talk about when we speak about green infrastructure. So now that we're on the same page, I'll return briefly to GEO. As I mentioned, we're guided by a steering committee. You can see our current members represented by their logos on the right hand of the screen. And we also have a general membership of interested stakeholders and individuals. Our activities fall into two main categories. Those are government relations, where we focus on both direct advocacy as well as preparing comments and feedback on proposed policy, as well as communication and information sharing. So presentations like this one, publications, workshops, and our monthly newsletter, among other efforts. So I'm not going to read this slide. It provides a snapshot of some of our recent national, federal level government relations work. In particular, we've focused with a collective of other natural infrastructure focused organizations to promote the value of green infrastructure as part of our green recovery, to advocate for increased funding for green infrastructure at the federal level. And at the provincial level, we've been meeting with representatives from each of the parties to share recommendations about environmental priorities to inform the development of their platforms for the upcoming elections. So also including our calls for increased funding for green infrastructure and support for green infrastructure implementation. On the communication side, this provides a bit of a snapshot of a few of our recent activities. Our most recent report was the Economic Impact Assessment of the Green Infrastructure sector in Ontario, which I'll speak about in a moment. We also focus on supporting municipalities in increasing their green infrastructure implementation, in particular through our recent Greenbelt funded Advancing Municipal Action project, which aim to identify key barriers and challenges to implementation, to compiling and developing tools, resources, and also developing training to help overcome those barriers. A two-pager summarizing the outcomes of that work is available on our website, as is our new Municipal Resource Hub, which was another project outcome, compiling some of those key resources. We've also recently launched a training series in partnership with TRCA, focused on incorporating green infrastructure into asset management planning. Partnerships are really a key way that we advance our work in this space. And I won't read this slide either, but it provides a bit of a snapshot of ways that we've been working to get the word out about these various projects and publications. So spend a lot of time presenting and talking about our work. Now, I'd like to share the results and some key findings from our first of its kind assessment of the green infrastructure sector in Ontario. The study was commissioned by GEO and funded by the Greenbelt Foundation with additional financial support from Landscape Ontario, and the work was prepared by the Delphi Group. The goal of the study was to gain an understanding of the full scope of the green infrastructure sector in Ontario, and more broadly, to be able to show that green infrastructure is in fact a robust sector that contributes to the provincial economy. So first, it was necessary to define the subsectors that contribute, as well as the activity within these sectors. Delphi then completed an assessment of the economic contribution of the sector, and then estimated the growth potential of the sector based on two different scenarios. And so I'm going to walk through some of the results of this process. So as I mentioned, the starting point was to define the sector because it's not formally recognized as a sector by StatsCan or within the province. And so there was some work to be done to determine what needed to be included in the analysis. We started from GEO's definition and worked from there, making sure that we included all of the activity within the sector without duplicating any efforts. And so to do this, we defined 7 key subsectors. Those are listed on this slide. The first 6 are pretty straightforward, and they generally align to GEO's focus areas. The 7th is a little bit different, and so I want to explain. So cross-sectoral support services refers to a number of different essential support activities that contribute to the green infrastructure value chain in Ontario. And so those are things like federal government departments, provincial ministries, Indigenous public administration, conservation authorities, and environmental non-governmental organizations. So now that I've explained that background research, here are some results. So based on the most recent data available from 2018, it's estimated that Ontario's green infrastructure sector was responsible for $8.3 billion in GDP and employing over 122,000 people. So those are the indirect and induced. You'll see a full sort of range of the results on the slide in front of you. And to put that into context, we also asked Delphi to compare the sector to the 3 closest official sectors identified by StatsCan, which you can see here. Note that for these comparisons, we use the direct GDP numbers. Where that gets particularly interesting to me, though, is looking at the jobs. So looking at those same 3 sectors, you can see the green infrastructure sector is significantly higher. It's in fact more jobs than all 3 of those sectors combined. So factoring in the indirect and induced impacts, as I mentioned, green infrastructure employs over 122,000 people, which actually puts the sector just behind real estate in Ontario. And another interesting comparison that I wanted to include is to Canada's auto industry. So you hear a lot about the auto industry as being a big employer. So across Canada, the auto industry employs approximately 100,000 people, not just in Ontario. And so for me, that really helped to understand the significant impact of the sector. So a few other key findings, more qualitative. So the supply chain for the green infrastructure is very local. Investment stays within the province and often within the immediate community. The sector also supports a wide range of jobs spanning laborers, skilled trades, and professional services. There are a lot of different ways to enter the sector and to get trained and become a member of the sector. There's a very strong return on investment, particularly when it comes to projects relating to climate resilience and disaster risk, specifically those that relate to flooding. And I also mentioned we looked at the growth potential of the sector. We looked at two scenarios, which you can see in front of you. One was business as usual, and the other was a stretch scenario. So even under business as usual, there's a 22% projected growth to 2030. With increased investment and supportive policy, that number jumps to 73%. So that reflects our asks of investment of 15% of infrastructure spending being dedicated to green infrastructure. So these findings show the strong potential of the sector and have been really useful in our advocacy work. So key takeaways: green infrastructure is win-win-win. It creates good local jobs, supports climate and flood resilience, and provides a variety of benefits that make Ontarians happier and healthier. Investment in green infrastructure presents a transformative economic sector opportunity for Ontario. However, in order to be able to fully realize that opportunity, we really need a reliable source of long-term funding to be able to plan and execute projects routinely. So there's a lot of potential for the sector, both in terms of job creation and economic contributions. And I've been really excited to have this report as a tool to be able to promote the sector. The full report is available on our website, as well as a 2-page executive summary. And I really thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all today. If you're interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out. And if you're interested in supporting GEO and continuing to do this kind of work, becoming a member is a great way to do it. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And if I can ask you to please take down your presentation, I can see everybody if they want to have any questions or comments. Use your chat line too, please, if you want to. I found it was very informative, Jennifer, and I'm really grateful that you took the time out of your busy day to join us today. Member Brady, I see, has a question or a comment. Go ahead, Member Brady, and then Member Fior.
Thanks. I found your presentation very illuminating. I have one question which may seem a little odd, but it's just as you were going through it, I kept wondering, is the golf industry considered part of green infrastructure?
The golf industry is, good question. It's certainly something that we discuss a lot because it does provide some of the value as far as the same benefits that parks provided, stormwater management and creating those cooling impacts. The challenge is really around access and equitable access. And so from a service perspective, it does, I would say it provides many of the services that green infrastructure provides. Although some of those other services are really the enjoyment of nature and the physical and mental health benefits, which certainly are available to members. So yes and no, essentially. For the purposes of the economic impact assessment, we did not include golf courses because they do get accounted for. That economic activity gets accounted for already within the sort of recreation sector.
Thank you, Member Brady.
Yeah, that's really what I wanted to know, because I was sure that the golf sector provided significant economic benefits to Ontario in terms of activity, but I wondered if that was bloating your number or not. And apparently you've answered that question very adequately for me, and thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, to just expand very briefly, we tried to exclude anything that was already captured within existing sectors. So recreation activities and tourism activities were excluded because those are accounted for elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Fior.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Johnson. Thank you for your presentation, Jen, or Ms. Court. I'm a big fan of your organization and try to stay up to date on the work that you're doing. You mentioned right at the end about being a member. Could you speak to that just for a minute, what that would entail for the Npca to be a member and for our member municipalities to become a member? Thank you.
Certainly, yeah. Thank you very much. So there are a number of different ways to be a member. We have several conservation authorities who sit on our steering committee and play a much more active role in our day-to-day. We welcome NECAs to participate in that way. It's a bit more of a hands-on role that involves attending our quarterly meetings and sort of, being involved in the decision-making processes. But on a more sort of low-key level, we do also welcome both conservation authorities and municipalities to become part of our general membership, which then provides benefits in terms of discounted access to our training and advance notice about events and activities. The full range of benefits is on our website. And so we do also have several conservation authorities that participate in that way, and several municipalities as well. And so, we really welcome anyone to get involved in the way that sort of makes the most sense based on their capacity.
Thank you. Member Fior?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know capacity is a little bit limited, but hopefully we can have increased representation across the entire watershed, not just from our conservation authority, but also our member municipality. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, thank you. Member Smith has a question. Thank you for using the chat line.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, I'd like to get, I guess, an unofficial sense from you on the uptake on the green infrastructure push at the municipal level. Are you finding that there is resistance? And if there is resistance, can you broadly define it as what are the concerns of municipalities?
Jennifer?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a big one. So first I'll say, to dig in deeper, that really is what we were exploring in the project that I briefly mentioned, Advancing Municipal Action on Green Infrastructure. So there's a 2-page summary on the website that really breaks down some of those barriers. To quickly address it, we are seeing increasing uptake and interest, often from a core group of champions who then work to get buy-in from the rest of their team. Some key areas of resistance are really around lack of knowledge, entrenched ways of doing things. And so, there are still some perceptions that green infrastructure is new or untested, which are not the case. But sometimes there's a challenge sort of finding out whether case studies from other jurisdictions are applicable here. And so, really, those are the things we're trying to help dispel, right? Is showing that green infrastructure has been happening in Canada, particularly here in Ontario in a lot of ways, and in many ways led by the conservation authorities for decades now, and that it does work. And so pulling together case studies and examples and sharing information about success stories is a big part of the solution for us.
Member Smith?
Thank you. So one quick follow-up. Are you or someone in your organization available to do presentations like this to the lower level municipalities? All of us on this board represent one municipality or another.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And would we use you as the point of contact, or just look on the website, or?
Oh, you can reach out to me. I would be happy to talk to you about what's possible.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Again, thank you very much, Jennifer, for joining us today. That was really brilliant of you for sharing your information. Sorry.
Chair Johnson, Member McKenzie, if I can ask.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
That's all right. Jennifer, thanks for your presentation again. And there's been questions and discussion about bringing this message to municipalities. How is your message being delivered, or are you attempting to deliver your message to homeowners? They own most of the land in municipalities, and I think That's my question. Do you have an avenue for delivering this to homeowners?
Jennifer?
Yes, we do. It's not just for capacity reasons. It's not our primary area of focus. And so the main way we get the message out to homeowners is through our partner organization. So several of our steering committee members focus on private land and working with homeowners. And we work with other networks like and Green Communities Canada, another of our steering committee members, is very focused on that level. We work with networks like Unflood Ontario, the Intact Centre, who are focused on reaching homeowners. And so collaboration is a really key part of our approach to sort of expanding our network and our capacity. With that said, we do have a lot of individuals increasingly joining as members and subscribing to our newsletters and our social media channels. And that's a key way that we try and get the information out to a broader group of people.
Member McKenzie?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Fiore has a follow-up question.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Johnson, Ms. Court, just to follow up on what Member Smith was saying, have any of the municipalities reached out to you with respect to Ontario Regulation 588.17 and helping them bring them up to speed so that they can be ready for the 2023 deadline?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that question. It's actually a really key area of focus for us. GEO was very involved in working to try and shape that regulation so that it's accurately reflected green infrastructure and would be implementable in reasonably easy way. And so now we are focused on providing that support. So I briefly mentioned a training series that we put together with Toronto and Region Conservation Authority. And we had very high municipal participation in that focused on sort of an introduction to how to comply with that regulation. We'll be conducting an advanced version of that training series in the fall as well, and we'll be working to get the word out. And then, looking to really to provide that level of hands-on support to municipalities whenever possible. And so what we've been really doing is encouraging municipalities to reach out, and we're shaping some offerings to provide that support.
Thank you. Member Fiore?
Perfect. Thank you. Through you, Chair. So as members maybe go and approach their municipalities that they represent, just letting them know that that extra feature is the importance of being able to comply with that regulation. That 2023 is coming pretty quick, so bringing them up to speed. So good to know that you will be offering that advanced training and that you're able to present to our municipalities. So thank you for being here and hope to see you again in the region.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, again, third time. Jennifer, thank you very much for coming this morning. I really appreciate that. It has been moved by Member Foster, seconded by Member Halenga to receive the presentation. Any opposition? Seeing none. Super. Now you don't have a long drive. Jennifer, thank you.
That's right. It's very easy to go home. Thanks very much again.
I hear you. So now, thank you, everyone. We're on to our second presentation. This is really just a conservation areas update. We've asked Chandra to come forward just to let everybody know how things have been going for the past year and a bit. So Chandra, I'm going to turn this over to you and take it away.
Thank you, Chair Johnson and Vice Chair McKenzie, for asking that question. It was important and timely for us to come to the board and do a little show and tell of what's going on in our conservation areas, both active and passive, what kind of programming we are offering, how we have how we are coping with the COVID pandemic. So today with us is Adam Christie, our Director of Lands Operation, and Manager of CA Conservation Area Services, Alicia Powell, who will jointly make a presentation to the board. Over to you, Adam.
Good morning, board, and thank you, Chandra. Appreciate the time to be here to kind of show what we're doing and what's been going on. It's certainly been a interesting few months dealing with all the regulations, but things are going in the right track now. So with that, I will share my screen. Okay. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Alicia Powell, who manages all of our conservation area services. And she's going to just chat a little bit about our services that are currently going on and how we've been doing.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We're really excited to be able to share an update with the board today about what we've been able to deliver within our conservation area services. And I think after reflecting on 2020 and the season that we had, which was quite overwhelming last year, we really recognize, I think we recognize across the region and across Canada, the importance of access to green space and the natural environment and what conservation areas themselves provide to our community members. So we're very pleased that through the 2021 season, we've been able to deliver a number of conservation area services that I'll be able to share with you today, while ensuring the health and safety for staff, our visitors, and while ensuring that we're complying with the Ontario regulations, as well as local public health guidelines. And we've been very fortunate and privileged to be able to sit on a number of networks and committees within the Niagara region, including our Parks and Recreation Active Niagara Network, and sharing with members of our local public health department with regards to our operations and seeking advice and input. So today I'll just share with you a list of our conservation area services that we've been able to deliver so far. Fortunately, through 2021, we've been able to keep our conservation areas open for both passive and active recreation, including hiking, dog walking, bird watching, and nature photography, as well as paddle sports and fishing. So we've been able to do that quite successfully, and we know that members of our communities are happy to be back out in nature and within the conservation areas. We've also been able to offer seasonal and nightly camping. We were able to open up on time for our seasonal campgrounds on the Friday of Victoria Day weekend at Chippewa Creek and Long Beach Conservation Area. So they opened on May 21st and have been open. I'll share a little bit more with you about that in just a moment, but we were able to open for nightly, or what we call transient camping, as we moved into step 1 of the province's reopening plan on June 11th. So we've been open for nightly camping or transient camping since then. We were able to keep our boat launches open as well, including at Jordan Harbor and EC Brown, and we recognize the importance of providing access to local waterways, not only for recreation, but also for subsistence fishing as well, and we recognize that among our visitors. Very fortunately, folks have been able to engage in religious rites and ceremonies throughout the course of the pandemic while following public health guidelines and capacity restrictions. While many weddings have either moved to 2022 or have held on to dates later on in the year to hold their ceremony and hopefully their reception at Balls Falls Conservation Area, we have seen a small number of outdoor wedding ceremonies go forward over the past month or so as they've been permitted within the province. As you may be familiar, the filming industry has not stopped throughout the course of the pandemic, and we continue to receive a number of inquiries and requests to film on our conservation area properties, some of which have already occurred. We've had one television program film at Balls Falls, and another commercial will be filming here on Monday. Chippewa Creek is open for watercraft rentals, and speaking of those types of third-party services, our third-party operators, primarily out of Bimbra Conservation Area, have been able to operate within operational guidelines within the province and the city of Hamilton. So Bimbra Wave Rentals has been able to operate, as well as Border Pass Cable Wakeboarding, and the Fun Splash Inflatable Water Park there was able to open last week as per Step 2 guidelines. We see the Niagara Rowing School operating successfully out of Jordan Harbor, and Treetop Trekking at Bimbra was able to operate successfully from very early on in our reopening plan. We are also happy to share with you an update on visitation to our parks. As I mentioned, our parks have stayed open since the beginning of the year, and we've seen an extended shoulder season at Bimbra Conservation Area following ice fishing season there. So at Balls Falls, over the course of the year, since January, we've seen approximately 16,000 visitors here, and that includes membership pass holders presenting their card. In the same period in 2020, we saw about 2,800 visitors. And it's important to note that early on in the pandemic, our parks were closed. In fact, people could not enter our conservation areas at all as per the provincial regulations. And we were able to open on June 19th. So it's important to note that the same period reporting in 2020 is reflective of the last 2 weeks of June of that time period. So those were high numbers compared to previous years. But this year we've seen 16,000 at Balls Falls and 22,000 day use visitors at Bimbra Conservation Area, where during the last 2 weeks of June, they saw about 4,500 visitors. At Chippewa Creek and Long Beach Conservation Area, we've seen combined about 22,000 day use visitors. While they're not as popular day use parks as Balls Falls and Binbrook, we saw about 1,000 visitors during the same period in 2020. Our seasonal campsites are filled at 100% occupancy at both campgrounds, and we see about 50% to 100% occupancy for nightly camping on our campsites at both of those parks. Last year, it's important to note that we were only permitted to operate at about a 50% capacity for our nightly camping within Chippewa Creek and Long Beach. So this is quite significant and also reflects the need for hyperlocal tourism within our region. Very important to acknowledge, we're really excited to announce the onboarding of the new CAMIS reservation system. CAMIS is a software system for campground reservations and retail sales. It's utilized by Ontario Parks and Hamilton Conservation Authority as well. We procured the software system in late 2020 and it went live on April 1st for nightly camping reservations right on time. And our staff who work with the system found it to be a very smooth and effective transition from our previous software provider. We saw a transfer of our online sales, so our membership pass sales have transitioned over through the CAMIS system. And the system is excellent in that it provides us with increased reporting tools, new ways to measure KPIs within our campgrounds, and increased ability to analyze our metrics coming out of our sales and reservations. As I mentioned, our 2021 membership pass sales have transitioned over to the online format, and we've seen a significant increase in interest and sales of our membership passes, which again highlights the importance and the need for hyperlocal tourism and activities within our region. So to date, through yesterday, we saw the sale of 1,479 passes, 548 of which have been sold online through the CAMIS software platform. Last year, we capped our sales at about 1,000 passes sold to our visitors. That was the highest that we'd ever seen sold of our membership passes, which is significant. And we ceased those sales because we were reaching capacity consistently within our day use parks with those passes. So we're seeing an increase in interest in sales, and people are becoming Nature Plus members, which is phenomenal to see. We're also fortunate to be able to continue our outdoor educational programming. Of course, the ever popular Balls Falls Outdoor Adventure Summer Camp continues with 9 weeks of sold out programming. We've got about 40 campers on site, 10 campers per cohort. New this year, we offered a leader in training camp, and many of those leaders who participated, these are youth between 12 and 16 years of age, are returning to support our camp as volunteers. And we are at full capacity. I'm happy to share with you that within 40 minutes, we sold out our camp capacity. We were also invited by the District School Board of Niagara to participate in their summer heat camp program at schools across the watershed. And so the Npca is delivering the outdoor education component of the DSBN summer heat program. We're delivering that program over the course of 3 weeks. We're about halfway through now, and our educators are traveling from school to school across the board, delivering programming and education stations for junior kindergarten through grade 4 students. And beginning on Monday next week, we are very excited to be delivering the first ever Signatory Outdoor Adventure Camp in partnership with the Niagara Catholic District School Board. We're offering two cohorts over 4 weeks of camp at the Signatory Outdoor Education Center, or as we know it within the Npca, the St. John's Valley Center. So we're very excited to be delivering that to their students and youth within our watershed. We're also excited to continue to plan our conservation area events within the watershed. Coming up first, the Npca will be partnering with the town of Lincoln to deliver the Wanderlost program later on in August through September 6th here at Balls Falls. Sporterra Inc. will be delivering their popular Mud Girl Hamilton race. It's anticipated to go from October 2nd to 3rd at Bimbra Conservation Area. And I see that tickets are selling quickly for that event in compliance with restrictions at this time. And we're continuing to plan for the 47th annual Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival. So we can confirm to the board today that we will be going online and virtual again with our software platform delivering vendor sales between September 1st and October 4th, which is really exciting. We saw some significant positive feedback from our vendors and customers with regards to our virtual delivery last year. And we've been working closely with the town of Lincoln, our local public health department, and our staff to configure how we're able to deliver in-person programming over the Thanksgiving weekend. And now that the Step 3 guidelines are here and our supports in the festivals and events sector and Ministry of Tourism have delivered guidelines for us, we're happy to continue to plan some smaller services delivered here in person. It's important to note that our virtual software program that we were using to go virtual with the festival allows us to sell advanced reservation tickets so that we can control the capacity to our event. Very similar to what we did with the Balls Falls Holiday Trail in 2020, and we continue to plan for that event towards the end of this year. With regards to our passive conservation areas, those non-gated parks, one significant thing that we've done to increase our reporting and our ability to measure utilization and visitation to those parks is install the TrapX Trail Tracker. So you can see an image of that installed. Many of our partners in conservation have shared the positive reviews of this system. And so far to date, from when they were installed in early June through to earlier this week, we can see the peaks and valleys of visitation on those parks, including Beamer, Louth, Rockaway, St. John's, and Wood End. St. John's and Beamer being our most popular passive areas. And we can see those spikes over the course of weekends. And this information we're going to be gathering over the course of the season will help us to acknowledge the carrying capacity of our sites and our ability to effectively manage those passive conservation area resources.
Okay, I'm going to take it from here. Thank you, Alicia. So to talk about a little bit about some of our conservation area land projects that have been going on this season. The first one I'll start with Waynflete Wetlands Conservation Area. We started with a survey in February that went to March. We had a successful rate with it. We had 378 surveys that were completed, 61% of respondents that actually ended up residing in Waynflete. And pretty much it was, anticipated. A lot of people for the site wanted more of the passive recreation type services at the property, which include more educational signage, new trails, educational programming, bicycle parking, washroom facilities. And some of more of the items that we put in the survey that were more active, including tennis courts and basketball courts and hunting, beach volleyball, were not something the residents wanted. So because of with the pandemic, we've just seen a massive visitation increase at the Waynflete Wetlands Conservation Area, and unfortunately, some behavioral issues at the site as well. So for this year, we needed to put together kind of a short-term solution. We really focused our solution and strategy based on the health and safety of people using the property. It included the expansion of the north parking area. It had about 8 parking areas and now has close to 25. Installation of a fence and additional safety measures around the pump, which is in the south area of the conservation area. A new site signage, and then we also added portable washrooms, we added more garbage receptacles, and we also stepped up our regulations there as well. Our staff have been out there on weekends, and we also get support from some external security on peak times throughout the weekend. Just to give you a little picture, this is on the right here is the brand new parking area that was created, expanded from the current one with the added washrooms and garbage receptacles. So far, it's since it's been done, was completed in late June, it has been successful. This is the south area that shows the fencing that no longer allows people to walk in and out in this area. And we now have one access into the property, which is excellent for the signage, and everybody knows the rules for the property. And this is the buoys that were put around the pump just for added safety. Another important project is our 2 Mile Creek Conservation Area. This project is called the Forest and Stream Rehabilitation Project. It includes the forest and stream rehabilitation of 3.5 acres. This property saw a massive impact with the emerald ash borer beetle, and unfortunately just had a massive amount of ash trees that have died on the property. And again, for health and safety and just for forest health, this is an important project to remove these ash trees, and then phase 2 will include replacing it with a young forest more appropriate with native tree species. So this project is going on now, and this is our 2 Mile Creek Conservation Area that shows treatment area A and B. Both are being executed as we speak, and hopefully will be completed by the end of next week. These are a couple pictures that are going on to show some of the support. This shows the picture on the right shows the actual tree removal, and then the mulching on the left. That's our forester, Dan Drennan, who's been on site monitoring the entire project and has been really satisfied so far with the progress. Another important is our Bimbra conservation area. In 2019, the Npca was successful in acquiring 40 acres of property adjacent to Bimbra on the other side of Lake Neopinko. And the Ontario Power Generation were supportive in funding this restoration project. So as of this spring, we started to plant over 3,200 shrubs. And as of this fall, we will start the planting of over 1,600 trees and 20 acres of grassland. So just previously, this property was just nothing but farm field, and we're restoring it into what this will now look like. So as you can see, it will be 20 acres of grassland and then an additional 20 acres of a combination of tree and shrubs led by our restoration team and the Glambrook Conservation Committee, who's been excellent in doing this. So they've been executing all this. This is the pictures of all the shrubs that they planted and them working. So they've been out there working hard, and we're much appreciated with their efforts. Just wanted to give a little thing of some of the completed projects that I've already been done in 2021. So on our left, this is the Treetop Trekking Pavilion that was completed on time prior to the start of the year. It looks excellent, and it's been a real successful year for Treetop, and everything's gone really well. In the middle there is our new comfort station at Long Beach Conservation Area. Again, this includes more stalls, more showers. We only had a very small comfort station on the north side at Long Beach, and with the expansion of new sites, this was something that was massively needed. And again, it looks really great, and it's been really successful so far. I'm proud to say on the right, it's tough to show a picture of this, but this is our Balls Falls septic system that was also completed. So hydro seed has been put down on this, and this is going to turn into a nice, beautiful grassy area. And we now have a septic system to permit more, attended events that we desperately needed. So also proud to share some of the restoration work that's been going on at our historical buildings. As you know, most of the historical buildings at Balls Falls were completed in 2020. So we've now turned our attention to St. John Center Conservation Area. On the right, we have our schoolhouse that the complete exterior has been finished along with the ramp and fencing. And I'm proud to say that our St. John's Mill, the roof has also been completely restored. So we look forward to continuing to work on that site to bring the historical buildings up to the appropriate status. I just want to give a heads up, this is some of the projects we are still slated for this year. So we're looking to complete the Bimbrook septic system and the Bimbrook water quality upgrades, our Chippewa Creek upgrades project, the Balls Falls Field Center restoration, and phase 1 of our Balls Falls CFC gallery, and the Cave Springs conservation area enhancement and parking area. So that's kind of an update of where we're at. I'd be happy to take any questions. I'll unshare my screen.
Well, I'm going to start off with wow. So any questions and comments, and then I'll wrap it up. Thank you very much. So we got Member Woodhouse, and then Member Foster, and Member Fior. Go ahead, Member Woodhouse. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. I just a couple things. When you talk about re-establishing grasslands, could you speak specifically to the seeds that you are going to be putting in there and what this grassland should look like once you're completed?
Thank you for the question. And through you, Chair, Member Woodhouse, I can email you the exact seed. I don't have it on the top of my head, but the intent is to make it a grassy meadow.
Thank you, Member Woodhouse.
Well, given the situation, we have a motion coming forward that I'm bringing forward in the meeting today, excuse me, on pollinators and the need for them. Excuse me. Is that something that's been taken into consideration with the mix?
Through you, Chair, it's been this project has been led by our ecologist along with the experts of the Glanbrook Conservation Committee and our restoration team. So I'm sure they've taken into account everything, but I will, I can, like I said, I can send you the exact detail of the grassland and seed being used.
Thank you. Member Woodhouse?
Just a follow-up, I just want to make sure that we're taking, if we're going to be champions of this, and we all should be, then we should be, living what we believe. So I would hope that that is part and parcel of every project that we take in doing. But I echo the chairman's comments about the quality of work and the amount of work that's been done. It's very impressive. The only other question I have, Madam Chair, is 2 Mile Creek and the ash trees and clogging up the entire system. From what I've seen and understood, I echo your efforts in cleaning that up, and it's I'm sure well appreciated. Has there been any efforts to? I know this has been an issue within the town of Niagara Lake. Has there been any efforts to engage the public to making donations to reestablish natural vegetation in replace of those ash trees?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, and through you, Chair. There hasn't been like a massive communication piece, but it's something that we talk with the public a lot. We deal with a lot of public issues with the ash trees. All of our properties are dealing with it, so it's in constant communication, and they're aware. But I will certainly take that down as more of a communication piece, and appreciate that feedback.
And I think along that lines, Madam Chair, my final comment would be that maybe the foundation itself could participate in that. I know there is a lot of keen interest, and it seems to me to be a real opportunity for the general public and community to participate in a proactive way in resolving and reestablishing this area. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I have Member Foster and then Member Fior so far. Member Foster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you to both Adam and Alicia. Great report. It really is showing us some of the really good work that's being done in and through our areas. And on a personal level, I'm looking forward to us working together as we start looking to raise funds for Balls Falls and some of the new capital changes that we're looking at the main center there. So a couple of things. First of all, and this is a complaint that I'm hearing continuously back in and through, so it's and it won't surprise Adam, I don't think, but Long Beach. So the boat ramp there, of course, is a disaster. People are driving in and launching their boats off of the sand, driving back and in, doing all sorts of crazy things there. So, so what's the plan for that, and when are we going to actually get some improvements going into place there?
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. And through you, Chair, and thank you for that question. And I didn't include that as a project slated for 2021 because I'm just not 100% on the permits of things, Member Foster, but it is something we want to get done in 2021. We are currently working with a consultant to do the design of the ramp for us. They should have the final drawings within the next couple weeks. And then from there, it's on our plate to find out the permits that are needed for this and go through the proper channels to get all the approvals, and hopefully we can execute the project.
Thank you, Member Foster.
Okay, thank you. Second thing, and by the way, the stats and everything and the numbers that are coming in are really quite incredible for the number of people using the parks, and be it full-time and be it part-time and day trips, etc. I'm just curious, and I don't need it for today, but I'd like to talk somewhere along the line about the policies around, who goes in as full-time campers into our particular areas, and how the criteria are used for people. My understanding is there's a bit of a, if you were there last year, you're back in again next year type of thing in some cases. And to be perfectly frank, this is a conservation area that's open for the people of Niagara and Hamilton and Haldimand, and I'm not exactly sure the idea of exclusivity is a really good idea. So I'd like us to examine that a bit over the course of the next few months, just to see whether or not we are really doing the right thing with that. And I think in the future, perhaps maybe we should be looking at a little bit differing way of deciding how these spots and stuff like that are actually being made use of. So, and again, that's not for today, but something I want to bring up. So thank you.
Thank you. I've got Member Rapley saying that he cannot hook into WebEx. So CAO, could you please ask Jeff or someone to assist Member Rapley? Thank you. I've got Member Fiore and I believe Member Cridlin and then Member or Vice Chair McKenzie. So Member Fiore first.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Alicia and Adam and your entire team for incredible work. Increasingly important to have these spaces, as we've seen, but not without its challenges, as people may not know how to tread lightly. So I can imagine an increased workload that you're dealing with. One of those aspects of not treading lightly is waste management. So I tried to look in on that picture. Do you have receptacles beyond just a black bag? I think I saw one that maybe had a area for bottles. How are you able to manage waste diversification on site? I mean, green bins would be phenomenal, but I understand that comes with its own challenge. So you can just speak to that for a minute of how you're dealing with waste. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, and through you, Chair, we have started all of our newer, I guess we'll start the new receptacles. They're expensive. So we have been replacing them, but in phases. So every time we phase them, we phase with the new receptacles that have all the diversification. So we're getting there, and our goal is to get them throughout the entire park by next year.
Wonderful, thank you. And so you're having, you're working with the upper tier municipalities or the city of Hamilton, Haldimand County on that one?
We work with everybody.
Okay, wonderful, good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Member Cridlin, Member McKenzie. Member Cridlin first, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Again, thank you for such a robust report from both of you today. And it's always what's not there. I know we did acquire a property also this year, which makes sense that it isn't in the plan of the work, obviously, that you're reporting on today. But if you could maybe just touch on that report and or that property in Waynflete. And then the other comment was, again, with the incredible demand that we are seeing, and it's all a positive, but just also, and this is in our strategic plan, but that equal access. So always preserving that free access at every single decision point. So thank you again for excellent work and an excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you. Member McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Through you, I was wondering if Adam could tell us a little bit what the pump barrier is at Waynflete and what the pump is. Thank you.
Adam?
Thank you for the question, through your Chair. We have a pump at the Waynflete quarry, just it evens out the water levels for the property. At times the water gets too high and it goes over the road and it impacts the local residents. So we have a way of controlling the water levels through that pump area.
Thank you, Member McKenzie. Vice Chair.
Thank you. That gives me another day of exploring. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see any other questions. Oh, sorry, Member Smith. I keep forgetting to look at the chat line. I even left it open. Just for you. Go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned the die down of the ash trees, and I know that it's significant all across the region. Is there, when we are, I'm going to say, logging one of our properties like that to remove the dead, do we recover any economic benefit from it? Like, what do we do with the logs, I guess I'm saying? Do they just get chipped up in the mulch somewhere and disappear, or do they actually have a commercial value to them?
Thank you for through you, Chair. They don't have a commercial value. We mulch them because it actually creates a proper base to plant the trees in the spring. So instead of the removing them and putting up, getting into the logging business, we actually appreciate the mulch. It leaves it there and creates a good soil for planting for phase 2.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Foster, I have you for a second time, so go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back to Member Cridland's question. So I'm wondering if staff does have any update on the new property that's going on in Waynflete at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Adam?
Through you, Chair. The status is the property has been acquired. Our staff, it's now included in the rounds that we check on our site for any issues, concerns, but we look forward to working and putting together some type of management plan for the property in the future.
Thank you, Member Foster.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If I can turn the chair over to Member McKenzie, that would be great, Vice Chair. So I just have a couple of comments on slide 4. We talked about in one particular park, they went from 4,500 visitors to 22,000 visitors. And I know that that's also increasing costs for staff, but I just want to commend each and every one of you. I'm getting nothing but positive responses from those in Bimbra, given that that's my area, and also other areas on top of that, that everyone is just thrilled to death. I think we can all agree that people have discovered green space now since they've been locked down, and that's been their only haven. And hopefully the numbers are maintained, that people just don't forget about them now that lockdowns are starting to come to a slow end. My other question to you is, we talked about emerald ash borer, but out in our area in particular, the gypsy moth is really relevant. It's almost in epidemic proportions in some areas. Are you seeing any of this becoming a huge concern for your parks, our parks?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question. We monitor gypsy moth at our properties annually. This year we did do treatment. We found that one of our properties, Chippewa Creek Conservation Area, needed the treatment. So we did do the treatment, and then in the fall we will assess all the properties again and determine if any other are needed for 2022 and adjust the budget accordingly.
Thank you. And through you, Vice Chair, Adam, like the municipalities, we only treat our own properties. We do not treat residential properties. That seems to be the number one request I've had this year is, you need to help me. My whole forest is infested, but it's private property. So I just want you to please reiterate for the public record that the conservation authorities treat only their own properties. And what kind of application do you use?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. We just do our own properties. Yes, sorry, the treatment.
Mm-hmm. Do you do it by air or do you?
Air. Yep.
Okay. So just by the sheer application of an air treatment from an airplane or a helicopter, other properties do get involved, but it's not on purpose. It's just because of the application itself. Thank you. And I think on slide 11, you talked about there had been some, with increase visitors, we also have some compliance issues for some people. And I think we're going to be talking about that at 8A. And I believe that Member Cridland would also like to make a comment regarding the Waynflete area. So I don't see any other, one last statement, sorry. Vice Chair McKenzie, I'll take the chair back, and I understand that you want another comment, please.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. I just wanted to commend staff again, as so many members already have, to what they've accomplished during COVID. When this started, I sort of expected the steamroller to stop or stall, but there seems to have been an acceleration. So whatever has been motivating the staff, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Agreed.
Appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, as a follow-up to my previous question, is there, and this may be through to the foundation and Member Foster about the opportunities that all our signage that we place around. They may want to think about, people being able to contribute to this project or to the foundation or the board, and not the board, but the foundation in our efforts. It seems to me we're having a great opportunity here that with the huge increase in participation of the general public and awareness almost that we might be able to spin that into generating more funds for specific projects through our signage as we show that the work that we're doing becomes very positive. I just offer that as a suggestion, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Vice Chair McKenzie is of the same thoughts. So you might want to get together with him if we can come up with a solution with the CAO. Member Fiore.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. And through you, and just piggybacking off of Member Woodhouse's last comment, I was thinking about that the other day. As I ride through the Friendship Trail, I see that there's sponsorships. So families or individuals sponsor the maintenance of those sections of those trails. And I know that maybe that is veering a little bit into the foundation work, but is that something reasonable to include going forward for the NPCA to do rather than as part of the foundation?
Thank you. And actually, I see Member Foster, and if you don't mind, he's our representative on the foundation, and maybe he would have a comment. Thank you.
Yeah,
Member Foster.
Yeah, Member Cridlin and I are the two representatives there. So
that's right.
But anyway, what I want to say is that I think this is a really good idea, and it's something that we haven't discussed at the foundation. But typically, what we're trying to do is when there's some sort of an opportunity such as this comes forward, we are looking to have it sort of derive itself from the NPCA itself, so this particular board, and then we can go and put the logistics in play to go and actually make this stuff work. So I know Adam and Alicia have been working with the foundation on the benches policy and making sure that that's okay. If we want to put in place something, if the NPCA thinks signage and advertising is a great idea, yes, I'm right on board with that. So anyway, we need to derive that from our group here, and we can give a little bit of instruction over to the foundation to look at the logistics of how to make it work. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments or questions, so I have it moved by member. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Member Fiore, you weren't finished, and my apologies.
That's okay. No, just to respond to that, as I'm looking at our goals and KPIs that I know we're going to talk about this afternoon, perhaps that's something that we may benefit from including in the strategic plan. Am I on the right track to think that?
CAO Chandra, do you want to? Sharma, do you want to comment?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. All of that is included. Thank you, Member Fiore. It's all going to be part of that. KPIs are overall where we want to go. But again, there are measures attached to those KPIs that you are not seeing. So those measures will be all kinds of things we're talking about.
Okay, Member Fiore.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Grant, you may want to mute yourself because I'm hearing and I see that you're the one that's not muted here. So it is moved by Member Ingrao. I don't see Member Kwal. I don't know whether he's still online. So I'm going to go to, oh, I see Member Kwal. So you can second to receive the presentation. Are there any opposition? Thank you so much, Adam. Alicia, this has just been amazing. It really is. As I said, wow, I can't say that enough. Great work. Keep it up. Thank you. All right, so now, thank you very much, everyone. We're on to consent items. The report FA 4321, this is regarding the semi-annual planning and regulation statistics report. It is to receive, so I'm going to put that on the table first, and I have it moved by Member McKenzie, seconded by Member, I don't see Member Metcalf, unless he's just shut off his video. I'll just wait a second. And there he is. Okay, thank you. So it's on the table. Are there any questions or concerns or comments? Any opposition to receive it? Seeing none, thank you. We're on to 8B. This is the report FA 4421. This is regarding Human Resources report, 2021 Q1 and Q2. It is moved by Member Vice Chair Mackenzie, seconded by Member, did that already, sorry. Member Rapley, I see that you're back on, thank you. It's moved by Member Rapley and seconded by Member Steele.
I've been working by phone and getting by phone, I've been able to listen.
Oh, that's super. Actually, you don't need it now because we're seeing you and we're hearing you at the same time, or you're using your phone. Either way, it's wonderful. Thank you. So moved by Member Rapley, seconded by Member Steele. And I believe this is the, I got a text message that Member Cridlin, did you want to speak on the planning or did you want to speak on the compliance report?
Thank you through you, Chair. I was really just wanting a context comment. So I think we'll just keep moving. I know we've got lots of questions, so thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't see anything in the, I'm sorry, I was reading away. So we're on the Human Resources report, and it's been duly moved and seconded. Are there any concerns or questions or opposition? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. It's moved. And now we're on to discussion items. So report FA 4521, this is the Compliance and Enforcement 2021 Q2 statistics, and we need to approve this because Chandra will explain and needs approval to circulate to other municipalities. David and Jason are online to answer all questions, and I'd like to go to Member Cridlin for a comment afterwards. So Member or CAO Chandra? Sharma, go to you first, please.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. David will provide some context to the report on my behalf. David?
Thank you. David Deleuze.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. Yeah, with respect to the compliance report and the number of complaints we've received this particular quarter, you'll note that it is a significant increase compared to this time a year ago. We are almost at this point in the year, we are almost at the total number of complaints we received in 2020. So unfortunately, we are seeing an uptick in the number of complaints. And I think there's a few reasons for that. We're seeing, first of all, as we're coming out of COVID, you're seeing a higher increase in development happening in general across our watershed. You know, that was reflected in the planning report with the number of stats. And as that increases, it's not uncommon to then see an increase in the amount of illegal development activity that takes place as well. I think that just naturally goes along with that. And we are seeing that in the compliance side. Also, with respect to compliance, you'll see that there is a number of complaints that are either frivolous or they're outside of the Npca's jurisdiction, meaning that the Conservation Authority does not have the ability to enforce those complaints. It might be somebody calling to say that there's, for example, an animal running at large on a particular property. So that's outside of the Section 28 regulation review or enforcement regime. And actually, just on that note, I want to point out that these stats, they reflect only Section 28. So that means our permitting section, violations against our permit, so development in a wetland or in a watercourse or other regulated feature, they do not represent the number of complaints we receive on our lands or complaints within parks. So that would have to be something separate. But things we are working on to improve the situation, we're noticing with the increase of complaints that aren't related to the Npca, there's an opportunity there for increased education to the public. So we're looking internally on what more can we be providing in terms of information on what it is we actually regulate, what type of things we actually have the ability to enforce through our regulation. So trying to eliminate or reduce the number of complaints that are frivolous or complaints that aren't within our jurisdiction. We're also looking at reaching out with our member municipalities to help identify gaps in just the overall regulatory regime across Ontario. So for example, site alteration, a lot of times we'll get concerns about that, which are outside of the Npca regulation, but helping work with municipalities to identify where they do or do not have a site alteration bylaw or other similar bylaws that could be used to deal with those type of issues. So working with our municipal partners in their compliance and enforcement sections to identify gaps and to assist where possible with providing information to help them with achieving their enforcement roles as well.
Thank you. Oh.
Sorry, just one more thing.
No.
Yeah, Member Cridlin had asked a question about the number of violations that had shown up in Waynflete. And with respect to that, what we're seeing in Waynflete in particular is there's a lot more activity happening along shoreline. A lot of homeowners, especially given the number of storms in the last couple of years, are just getting around to replacing shore walls. So we've seen a larger or a higher number than normal of shoreline permits taking place, in particular in Waynflete. And again, as I mentioned earlier, what you see that goes along with that, unfortunately, is an uptick in the illegal activities. And there have been a lot of shore permits that, or shoreline shore walls that have started without proper approvals or have deviated from what was in their approved permits. So again, working to try and educate landowners and make sure that people are fully aware of what the regulatory requirements are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, David. And I can speak on behalf of all the councillors and mayors out there that complaints have come in tenfold since COVID for a variety of reasons, but it just seems like everyone's at home and they're starting to become more aware of their surroundings. Member Cridlin, I believe you had a comment or a question.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Again, just to thank the staff for highlighting the context of the numbers. So as you pointed out, the planning volume has gone up for a particular reason in Waynflete. There's also a lot more lands, I believe, in Waynflete that are under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority. So where it does look like there's an extra amount of activity, it's not really an extra amount. It's just that there's so many lands in Waynflete that the Conservation Authority, is involved in. So I really just want that perspective to be out there that we do need that kind of assistance to get those things happening. And obviously, as the staff pointed out, there is an education opportunity against the stress of the shoreline requirements that are needed and what's going on there. So that's still ongoing, and thank you for the Npca support in that area.
Thank you, Member Cridlin. Any other questions or comments about the compliance report before I go to CAO Shamra, who would like to get approval to circulate this to other municipalities? Seeing none, CAO Sharma.
No, thank you, board members. I'm satisfied with the approval of the recommendations. We will now, as staff, reach out to our municipal partners, and the report will be circulated through the clerk.
Thank you very much. So it has been moved by Member Smith and seconded by Member Woodhouse to approve 8A, Compliance and Enforcement, 2021 Q1 and 2. Any opposition? I'm not seeing any. I don't see anybody wanting to speak. So that's been approved. So now we're on to report number FA 4621, Npca section 28, permit signatory delegation. I'm going to turn this also over to CAO Chandra Sharma to explain.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So currently, as you know, the CAO, myself, has the delegated authority to sign the section 28 work permits for Npca. Former director of Watershed also had the delegated authority to sign the work permits. Now that we have a change in that leadership, we have a new director in place. We are just asking the board to obtain your approval to allow Director of Watershed Management to be a signing authority in addition to myself. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have it moved by Member Wright. That seems appropriate. And seconded by Member Beattie. I don't see, do I see Member Wright? There you are, Member Wright. My apologies. And Member Beattie, seconded by Member Beattie. Any opposition? Seeing none. Thank you. And now we're on to report number FA 4721. This is the rotation of the chair position, and it's resulting from the Conservation Authorities Act update. This came straight from governance. They felt that the board of directors needed to comment on this and to provide their input before we send it on. So I have it right now. It has been moved by Member Brady, seconded by Member Clark to put it on the floor. Comments or questions, please? Maybe I'll go to the Chair of Governance. Member Foster, sorry for putting you on the spot.
I don't have anything really to add outside of the report itself, Chair Johnson.
Okay. Anyone else? I don't know if people are adjusting their shirts or if they want to speak, so that's why I keep looking. Okay, thank you. It has no opposition. It has been moved. And now we're on to committee reports. The Strategic Planning Committee, this is the minutes to receive, please. 9.1.1, minutes of the Public Advisory Committee meeting dated June the 17th, 2021. It has been moved by Member Kuhn Peterson. I believe you're still on the line because you've been texting me. And Member Cridlin, seconded. So any questions, concerns about the minutes? Thank you. Any opposition? Seeing none, thank you very much. Now we're on to the Governance Committee. We're going to move the minutes first for receiving, and then there's a report in there. I'm going to go to Grant Bevo and Member Foster for comments. So first we'll do 9.2.1. This is the minutes of the Governance Committee meeting dated June 24th, 2021 to receive. So it has been moved by Member Fior, seconded by moved by Member Foster, seconded by Member Fior. Any opposition? Oh, Member Foster.
Yeah, I'm not opposing. In fact, quite the opposite of that. So anyway, just with that particular meeting, as we were going through, we were dealing with a few cleanup items in and through it. But the next report coming up, the Freedom of Information, statistical information was important. Coming back to the board. We went through the work plan. Our CAO, how do I say it? Chandra Sharma is has a lot of work on her plate to go and start bringing some of these issues in and around the CA changes. So, we're going to be looking forward to working with her to make all of this comes into play. We talked about board training needs. And there's a number of things. We were very, very pleased back some time ago when we had the lawyer in regarding, how...
Excuse me, Member Foster, we're getting a lot of feedback. Can everybody please mute themselves? I have a feeling it's coming from a phone in, but I can't really tell. I think it's Member Mackenzie, actually. Thank you. No, it's still there. Okay, well, we'll do our best. Kevin, if you can do something, that would be great. Go ahead, Member Foster. My apologies.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of hear myself. That's kind of cool.
It's like we have a baby monitor in the room.
No comment. So anyway, the board training needs. We were very, very happy with earlier training that we've gone through. Oh. There.
Yeah, it's the phone in.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good. Now I think we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I'll do it real quick. So anyway, the board training, we have items that are coming up with that. We talked about the process for delegations to the board as well. So we're hoping... So anyway, let's go back to board training needs. So
Thank you.
The bottom line is that we've had discussions on items that we think should be brought forward to the board for training purposes, and so we're looking forward to as a board working our way forward in these areas, and the process for delegations to the board itself. Anyway, we had some discussions about that as well. don't think we really came to a conclusion other than, we want to look at what best practices are being for other conservation authorities. So anyway, and I believe we tasked Grant to go and take a look at some of these areas. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about the minutes? So again, it's been moved by Member Foster, second by Member Fior. Any opposition to receive the minutes? Thank you. And now we're on to the report within the minutes. This is the Freedom of Information Statistical Report. This is really just to let everyone know, it was just to highlight it a little bit. So Grant, I believe you wanted to speak to this as you're the Freedom of Information guru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I was asked to bring forward or note that our costs with respect to appeals and the legal costs that go along with them are on a downward trend. In fact, the number that's referenced in the report is really relating to a carryover from 2019 appeals. So we are seeing a downward trend. There were actually 2 appeals, we'll say within the last 6 months, that have been dropped. So we're headed in the right direction. And over the last year, the trend has been away from questioning the activities of the Npca, more so to the neighbor wondering about what their neighbor is up to, permits for decks, that sort of stuff. It's moving away from the more contentious things and more to the neighbor type scenarios. So it's a very positive report overall, and the committee wanted me to flag that and bring that forward to the board's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. And so again, moved by Member Foster, seconded by Member Fior to receive Grant's presentation, I guess. Any opposition? Seeing none, thank you. So now we're on to notices of motion. I have not seen any come through my docket, so I'm assuming there is no notices of motion. I'll just wait a minute. Thank you. So now we're on to motions. I'm going to turn this over to Member Woodhouse, and this is regarding the provision of native pollinator species. Member Woodhouse, if you don't mind, please introduce your motion, and if you could let us know who is seconding that for you. And I'm sure we'll have lots of hand waving in a minute for people to second for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the motion speaks for itself, and anybody who's read it understands what the direction of this is, but I'll talk specifics if need be.
So I just need a seconder, please. Can somebody please raise their hand? Thank you. Member Brady is going to second it with you. Go ahead. It's on the table. Go.
Sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
So the I liken back to a time when we used to drive our cars around and we would have all kinds of insects hit our windshields. I don't know, that hasn't happened to me in a very long time, and it could be that I'm driving slower as I get older. I'm not sure, but I think it's pretty obvious as to what's happening in the environment. Last year, I saw one honeybee in my yard. I have quite a few flowers here. I saw one bee. It's just incredible what's going on, and I think we really need to make a concerted effort across all levels of government. And we have an opportunity, or we have a position to play in this, and I think that we can start this effort, and hopefully it can grow across all levels of government. Because when you think about things, and that's why I asked a question earlier, Madam Chair, if you indulge me, about the grass and the composition of the grass. What's actually in that? This seed collection. Seed varieties can be induced into all kinds of applications on properties, including, roadways, sideways. It's not like the old days where you used to have the province running the, 1,500 lawnmowers along the highways of Ontario anymore. So there's all kinds of opportunities for us to make our stamp of hope in trying to turn this trend around. Any efforts are appreciated, I'm certain, and I think that we can collectively do something of a positive nature in addressing what is becoming and can become a huge problem for civilization in itself. I mean, the pollinators are the ones that provide us with our food. And if we don't understand that, then we really haven't been following up on any kind of activities that are happening globally. And I really feel that we can start something here. We should use our platform to start something along these lines. My predecessor, Mickey DeFrucia, had done a lot of work in terms of the monarch butterflies. In fact, I have milkweed growing in my gardens around my house as a result of Mickey DeFrucia growing them in his greenhouse and circulating these plants around. So there is ways in which we can address this and start to make a difference, at least here in Niagara and maybe beyond. So that's the effort of the motion. Thank you.
Chair Johnson, you're muted.
There's so many people that wish I could do that more often. So just to let you know, thank you to also our CAO for helping with the wording on this motion. So it has been duly moved and seconded by Member Woodhouse, seconded by Member Brady. Are there any questions or comments? And Bruce, Member McKenzie, you have a friendly amendment, I believe, so go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to congratulate my fellow member Malcolm Woodhouse for bringing this motion forward. And my friendly amendment would be that this resolution be circulated to all the lower tier municipalities in Niagara and Hamilton and the county of Haldimand, if that would be acceptable to Member Woodhouse.
I believe he's shaking his head yes. Member Woodhouse, you're okay with that?
Yes, I could. And I would also note in, Madam Chair, the chat line
yes,
where
I saw
Member
that.
Smith has made a notation that I could hope we can correct in this as well. Thank you.
Me as well.
That's important.
So I'm hoping that our executive assistant, Grant Bevo, had heard that, so we can change that very quickly, please. Thank you, Member Smith, for pointing that out. And Member Fior.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Johnson. This just came to mind. I know it might be a stretch for this, but again, back to what Member Woodhouse was saying, it's wonderful to promote having a pollinator garden. I know I actually have a great one at my house, so I do get to see a little bit more life here, but that's because I don't use any chemicals and nor do my neighbors. So is there a possibility within this to not only encourage more pollinator gardens, but to discourage the use of some of the seeds or the fertilizers, the chemicals that might be reducing the impact of them, because we can plant them, but if we're negatively impacting them with other practices, then we're kind of leveling out, or we're crossing out the benefit that we've done. So is there room in this to encourage good and discourage bad?
That's a good question. I'm at a loss. Member Woodhouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I don't see any objection or any reason why we would be opposed to that kind of amendment. The only thing I would think, I see this as eating an elephant a bite at a time kind of situation. So any kind of positive change towards the pollinators, whether they be individual gardens or just mass land coverings, to me is a real positive. I think that the business community, once this becomes part and parcel of purchase orders from various project managements and consultants, etc., architectural and landscape architects, becomes more the norm, the less and less demand for these other non-native seedlings will prevail. But yes, I think we can make a comment in there that reflects that position. I would be supportive of that. My co-signer is.
Thank you. Member Fiore, if you have some wording that we can vote on, because right now it's left pretty vague. So is there any wording that you would like to include into this motion so we know what we're voting on, please?
Thank you. I want to turn the floor, not that I have the control to do that, but I know Member McKenzie, Vice Chair McKenzie had his hand up and maybe he could help with that, but something about along the lines of pollinator friendly fertilizers and pollinator friendly grass or something like that, grass seed. I'm not quite sure on that. Hopefully my fellow board members can help me out. Thank you.
Thank you. Member McKenzie, your hand was up. And everybody else, please mute yourself. I'm still hearing a bit of feedback. Thank you, Member or Vice Chair McKenzie. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Member Woodhouse mentioned a second ago, I think, about taking one step at a time. And I think his motion is an important step that is understandable by the audience that we wish to deliver this to. Using language such as environmentally friendly or native species, I would support including in the motion. But I would use a little caution here before we start to talk about fertilizers and pesticides, only because of our vast agricultural community and how the message may be received if we don't communicate it perfectly. In our neighborhoods, I think it's a very, very important message to communicate to our neighbors, the homeowners, and to the towns themselves as to how they use fertilizers and pesticides. This goes well with the earlier presentation we had today on green infrastructure. It's all part of this story. I would suggest that we leave this larger picture of environmental protection, because it even goes down to our water quality testing, to staff. If I don't want to lay another burden on CAO Sharma and her staff, but the environmental importance of this is not going to go away. So I see leaving this pretty well as it is, except with maybe the introduction of the term native species and providing friendly environments for them, and then have staff come back to us with suggestions as to how we might go further to show leadership in our communities. I guess sort of an extension of the restoration, recommendations to homeowners and municipalities of how to provide safe environments for not only the insects, but for us as well. And maybe the PAC committee is something that we should also direct this question to receive their feedback as to how we should move forward with this. Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you, Member Fiore and Member Woodhouse.
So thank you, Member McKenzie. I'm going to swing back to Member Fiore just for a minute, please. Member Fiore, are you okay with that direction that we include just native species at this point in time in friendly environment? And then we'll tackle the rest of the next layer in the immediate future, but keep the motion as is with those two amendments.
Sure. I mean, like I said, it's not just about doing good, it's about doing less bad. But confidence that that we'll get there in the hopefully near future, given how pressing some of these matters are. When we say friendly environment, let's make sure that we're wording it pollinator friendly environment. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And Member Brady, you're seconding this motion. I'll go to you, please.
I very much agree with leaving the motion as is and including the wording in terms of pollinator species. Once we start to get into pesticides and those kinds of things, one of the things that we should look at is what AMO brought in a number of years ago, which influenced the province of Ontario, because the province of Ontario has in place very strong restrictions on uses of pesticides. So with that background, if we want to go further, absolutely. But the provincial government, through the work of the municipalities, several years ago now, has created a much better environment in terms of that. So if we want to build on that, that's great, but we should look to that history as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. And now, Member Woodhouse, I'm coming back to you as the mover of the motion. There was a friendly amendment put on the table, and I believe it's been narrowed down now to the native pollinator species. So are you agreeable to putting that into the motion as an amendment?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we'll vote on the amendment first. Moved by Member Fiore, seconded by Member McKenzie, and I believe that CAO Sharma would like to comment.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Before members vote, I just want to draw your attention to the first whereas that says pollinator species. So if that helps, we don't need to make an amendment. That's all I had to say.
I believe it's native pollinator species, so I think the native needs to go in there. I think that was the ask. Is that in there now, or is that?
I mean, when you say pollinator species, it covers quite a breadth of species, that you can plant. But if you want to add that, that's fine.
Okay, I'll leave it up to the committee, please. Leave it as is, or we put the amendment in. So, Member Woodhouse, what is your wish?
Chair?
It's your motion. Yes, sir.
I would suggest, because when you talk about species, I mean, the pollinators can be, beetles that aren't native to Canada or elsewhere. I mean, that's
okay.
a possibility as well. So if it's removed and it, the pollinator species is the way to go, I'll support that and not support the amendment in terms of native.
Thank you. Member Kaywell, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I do believe we should be putting the word native in, and I think it would really go in the second, be it resolved, number 2, the second line, use of native pollinator species. I think that's where it should go. Okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to the mover again. The mover, it's been moved by Member Fiore and seconded by Member Kaywell to put in the word native in front of pollinator species in the therefore be it resolved number 2. Are you all right with that, sir?
Yes, Madam Chair. If that gets us going.
Yep, no problem. So it's been moved and seconded. We're putting one word in there. Any opposition to that? Thank you. No opposition. So we're going back now to the main motion as amended. It's been moved by Member Woodhouse, second by Member Brady. Any opposition, Member McKenzie? You're muted, sir.
Earlier, thank you, Chair Johnson. Earlier, I suggested a friendly amendment that the lower tier municipalities, Hamilton and County of Haldimand, be included in the circulation list.
Correct. My apologies. So I don't know if we need to, CAO Chandra?
Once again, through the chair, number 2 says that by copy of this motion, NPCA partner municipalities be requested. So it was the intent of that. So again.
It was already in there. Okay. Yeah. Member McKenzie? Okay, thank you. So any opposition now to the motion as amended? Seeing none. Thank you very much. We're moving on now. We're going to have an update from the foundation first, and then we'll go to CAO Sharma to wrap it up. So thank you. Member Foster or Member Cridlin, our 2 representatives on the foundation. Thank you so much for your work on this. Member Foster or Member Cridlin, who would like to take the ball?
I'll start, and then Donna can jump in. So just a few things going on with the foundation. As we had talked about earlier, there's a capital campaign that's being set up to be done in and around Balls Falls. We're looking forward to that. We kind of took a mini time out on that as we were coming into the summer. The committee itself, we've been through an awful lot as far as governance and everything else going into play, and making sure that all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So we're looking at a start into this campaign in September. I believe the chair of the foundation and Mr. Beval can probably say this, but I believe Chair Encina is planning on coming in to give a fulsome report to the NPCA board at our next board meeting. But anyway, I believe that request has gone in.
Yep.
That's all I.
So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's all I have to say. Oh, by the way, the comfort pens. There's a number of them that have been created again for use. There's a special program that's going on with those. So if anybody has ever harbored an interest to have a comfort pen, please reach out to either myself or Donna, and we will direct you into the right area. Thank you.
And how much are they?
Oh, they're worth a fortune.
Okay. Priceless. They're priceless.
You can't afford it, Chair Johnson, but for
the
rest of us,
I give all my money to your foundation. That's why.
It's a combination of costs that comes into play. It's approximately in the $100 range. So, and it's but there's a package that's put together for it. So, anyway, but it's well worth it. So, thank you.
Super, thank you. And Member Cridlin, thank you again for all your help on this, the foundation. If there's anything you want to add, feel free.
Well, it would be remiss not to do the pitch. So obviously the public knows that it's it's a fundraising arm of the Conservation Authority, and I would encourage anybody publicly, obviously, to reach out to us. And amongst ourselves, we are going to see if we can get to 100% of all of us contributing to the foundation and supporting this going forward that we're doing right now. So I'll be reaching out to you. That's the fun part of the foundation work. I'll have a chat with each of you and just do the reminders. So thanks again. There's been a ton of support already, and I know as we come as we go into opening, people are going to be more busy. So hopefully we'll be able to reach more people. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Woodhouse. Member Woodhouse? I think you're still muted, sir.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. I think you were unmuted before.
Maybe, yeah. Probably heard me breathing. Was that it? I don't know. But the issue of proper like signage and adding the opportunity for the foundation to make itself available to that, those opportunities as we go across the region and the different municipalities, is that something that should be coming from the foundation board as a request for us to allow that? Or is this a vice versa thing? It's just maybe clarity. Thank you.
And who would like to take that on? Member Foster?
Yeah, I'll say we're always looking for suggestions on ways of doing fundraising efforts in and through. So I would suggest that should be. I can take it as direction, or Donna and I can take it as direction. I'm back and through to the board to be looking at this, but the thing is that we want to hear from Adam and from Chandra and her team to basically say, here's opportunities to actually go and do this, and does this make sense for us to be actively going and going after that as a fundraising effort? So, but anyway, I'm talking very politically. Long and the short of it is, yes, I think it's a great idea, and so we'll be making sure that's going back to the foundation.
Thank you. Member Woodhouse, you still have the floor. Are you finished, or would you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, super. Thank you. And we can now, I don't see any more questions to the foundation members with our thanks. I'm just going to go to now the CAO to wrap up. Is there anything that was not mentioned today that you would want to make sure that our board members are aware?
Just thank you, Chair Johnson. I just want to share with the board members that staff and myself, we've started working with our municipal partners on the Bill 229 actions and governance-related changes. We met 3 conservation authorities together, met with the City of Hamilton, city manager, and senior staff from various divisions, and that process has kickstarted. Lise and I met with the Commissioner Todd yesterday in Niagara and his staff, and we have kickstarted the process. So we'll be meeting with the CAO and all senior staff to discuss the key priorities that we have to deliver on. And it's also an opportunity for myself to update staff within municipalities on the nuances of these changes, because it's very broad and it's confusing sometimes. So we are taking that opportunity to do that. And I'll be calling Haldimand CAO to start that process in Haldimand as well. So that's an update on that. I also want to tell the board members, and this is a shout out to all Npca staff, how hard everybody's working. The things you see here, the presentation you saw today, the reports you see, there's a lot of effort and hard work of various divisions that goes into these things, be it corporate services, finance, procurement, capital planning, engineering, our engineer, Steve Miller, and communications. So shout out to Npca staff. Everybody's working really hard. And restoration folks are making some excellent progress working with Niagara staff. Things that you don't see or hear, there are lots happening at the organization. And I'm really proud of our team. And thanks to our human resources who keeps us all in good balance and checks. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. And thank you to you, CAO. We know that you're not getting too many days off or too many nights and evenings and weekends. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts to everyone for all their hard work, and to all of you. Thank you so much, everyone. This is a wrap up. So if anybody has any comments, Member Rapley.
Oh,
and Member
sorry,
Metcalf next.
I've been having internet problems.
Yes.
It won't do the sound. And, you know, I realized the other day that Cogeco, which is my internet, is streaming all their new, without cable, through the system. And it may be, and unfortunately, we don't have Bell 5 here. But I'm going to look into it. It could be what's going on. But anyways, I had a couple comments. First of all, on the pollinator, remember that the bees that we have are European, the honeybee. And that Niagara Parks and the Niagara Parks Canada have had a really good pollination planting program all the way along the lake over the last few years. And Carrie Royer, with you remember our Carolinian Canada, we had a really
Member Rapley, you're cutting in and out. We didn't hear that last little bit,
as well as
sir.
Carolinian Canada.
Member Rapley.
Oh, okay.
Member Rapley, you bumped out there. Yes.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay. Carolinian Canada has been working with Carrie Royer. We had the workshops and all the horticulture places. For instance, the NOTL horticulture group has pollinator gardens that they planted, and Parks Canada and so on. So we could promote pollination, and Carrie Royer already has a program that you can get an update on. Of course, it may not be quite the same with the COVID as it was, but Carolina, they're working with the horticulture clubs throughout the region and trying to promote pollinator gardens. The other thing is, along the roadways, as you know, in the United States, in many places, there's all kinds of native pollinating plants planted along the side of roadways, and this would be a good program for the region.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I saw a member.
Sorry, I couldn't get that in before I tried.
Oh, sorry. Stupid internet. Member Metcalf, you had your hand up, and then I have Member Kaywell. Member Metcalf?
Yes, thank you, Chair Johnson. I was unable to attend our last NPCA board meeting. And previous to that, I was part of a crew that installed a pollinator garden at La Fortune Park through the sponsorship of the NPCA. Many volunteers came out that day to plant a number of species of indigenous plants and pollinator species. I can't even begin to remember how many different varieties there were. It was a great project to be a part of, and now that we have more space, and I fully support the recommendation or the motion by Member Woodhouse that we go ahead and install more of these pollinator gardens throughout our NPCA properties. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And I do try to wait, and I'm looking at everybody's faces. Maybe I'll just stall a little bit longer. Member Kaywell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Johnson. I just want to come back to the green infrastructure presentation that was made earlier today. In part of the upcoming strategic plan, green infrastructure is a significant initiative that will be part of that. And I'd like to suggest that after the strategic plan gets settled and as the executive team put in place their plans for 2022, that maybe at the end of this year, at the beginning of next year, it would be good to get an update for how green infrastructure turns into action plans for the NPCA. Like, what are those things that we're actually going to do to support or drive out or educate, whatever it is, around green infrastructure in 2022. So.
All right. Thank you. So, Member Foster.
Yes, thank you, Chair Johnson. So, as I briefly mentioned earlier when Adam was doing his discussions, I do want us as a board to take a look at some of the policies around usage, particularly at Long Beach and Chippewa, on essentially more or less full-time usage in those particular parks. So I guess a question through to the CAO, can that be taken as direction for us to open up a discussion on that maybe this fall, or would you prefer to have a motion? And if it's a motion, I can bring that up next month.
Thank you. CAO Sharma?
To you, Chair Johnson, I record everything. It's been taken as direction. Not to worry at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other comments, any questions, except to wish everyone a very safe and healthy rest of the summer. Please enjoy the outside. Member Kaywell, and also stay tuned for the strategic planning at 12:30. Member Kaywell?
That was going to be my question. When did you want to start the strategic planning meeting?
Well, sir, you're still the chair until you get kicked out or you get reelected this next, so it's up to you.
So instead of, would members be okay starting at noon as opposed to waiting a whole 45 minutes?
Sorry, folks, if I may interject, I think there was an issue with having the presenter available. I think Natalie specifically had requested 12:30. There was some reasoning.
Okay. All right. We will convene at 12:30 then.
Everybody has a longer lunch hour, that's all. All right, everyone, have a great summer, and we'll see you at 12:30 if you're not on. If so, we'll see you in September. Take care.